T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So as I continue to watch the NFL postseason, as many of you are, I can't help but be impressed by some of the coaching candidates that are putting all of their credentials on full display during this postseason run that they're going on. And Washington happens to be in one of the most advantageous positions that they've been in a very long time, where we as fans feel like we have the pick of the litter at the head coaching position, similar to what just transpired with the GM search. And so I myself have been adamant for 2 years now that I've wanted Ben Johnson here in Washington as the next head coach of the Washington Commanders. Now, my philosophy has and will continue to be, and it won't change, that if you're going to draft a young quarterback, which we anticipate Washington doing this season, or this draft season rather, in 2024, and we'll see what ultimately happens with the number 2 overall pick, whether they go up to number 1, make a selection at 2, trade back to 3. I think whatever is done, it will be done in the name of getting the new quarterback here in Washington. That said, if you're getting a new quarterback, I think it's only right to marry that quarterback with an offensive-minded head coach. Now, whether that's a young coach, which is the new trend in the league, and what you really prefer, or you go the older route like Andy Reid in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, whatever the case may be, you just want to marry that young quarterback with an offensive, brilliant mind, right? And so I'm no different. That's how I feel. And so Ben Johnson has been the candidate for me this entire time. I'm also open to Bobby Slowick. We've seen Callahan become a hot name in Cincinnati. I'm good, right? I'm good with the two candidates that we've been eyeballing this entire time. But really, Ben Johnson is the guy that I've been circling. But I can't be more impressed, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up a candidate that I don't think is getting enough buzz nor enough pub amongst fans of teams that are looking for a prospective coach. I've heard some in this fan base bring his name up, but I'm not sure I've heard enough people bring his name up. And that's defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, his body of work speaks for itself. We hold guys like Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson in high regard. We hold guys like Bobby Slowick of the Houston Texans, their offensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Mike McDaniel in Miami. These are just some of the offensive coordinators around the league that we've held in high regard as some of the most innovative and creative minds that this league has to offer right now. They have been the most dynamic and explosive offenses, along with probably Sean McVay in Los Angeles, in the league in the last 5 years or so. Mike Macdonald shut all of those guys down in their respective offenses this season, and in most instances, it wasn't even close. So if we're talking about a resume builder, if we're talking about a guy getting it done against elite competition, you're talking about Mike Macdonald in Baltimore. And as a matter of fact, let's take a look at what he's done against some of these quote-unquote elite offensive minds this season. And it started in week 1, very first week of the season against the Houston Texans. Now, we did not know at the time what the Houston Texans would turn into, but clearly they ended up being a really good offensive football team in 2023. And in week 1, Bobby Slowick, an offensive coordinator that I think is going to garner tons of attention this offseason, and I think ultimately will end up with a head coaching gig, went into M&T Bank Stadium and got drubbed 25-9. The Texans in that game were 1 of 4 on fourth downs, 0 of 2 in the red zone. Okay, the Ravens surrendered just 3.7 yards per play. Keep in mind, the league average is somewhere around 5.25. The Texans' yards per play this season on average was 5.4. So to hold them down a whole yard and some change under their season average speaks volumes about the Ravens defense that day. Only 268 yards of total offense, 5 sacks of C.J. Stroud. They forced a fumble and recovered that, did the Ravens defensively. Only gave up 9 points in that ball game. No touchdowns on the afternoon surrendered by that filthy Ravens defense headed up by Mike Macdonald. You go to week 7, Detroit Lions come to M&T Bank, and the Lions were flying high at that time of the season. They had restored the roar in Detroit, 5-1 going into that game. And a lot of people hyping up the Lions, Ben Johnson, the job he was doing at the time. This was a big matchup, and the Ravens dominated, partly in thanks to Mike Macdonald's defense. Lions went 5 of 16 on third downs, 2 of 6 on fourth downs. We know the Lions are a very aggressive team that isn't afraid to push the envelope on fourth downs. Ravens shut that door as well. 2 of 6 for the Lions on fourth downs. Ravens surrendered just 4.7 yards per play. This is a Lions team that averaged 6 yards per play this season, one of the best in the NFL. Simply could not generate the type of offense they were accustomed to against this Ravens defense. 0 of 1 in the red zone were the Lions in that Week 7 contest. 5 sacks of Jared Goff, 2 forced fumbles of Jared Goff. They picked him off as well, did this Ravens defense. Only surrendered 6 points. Keep in mind the Lions averaged roughly 27 points per game, good for 5th best in the NFL this season. They could only muster 6 in this game versus Mike Macdonald and that Ravens defense. 38-6 was the final score in that one. The game was 28-0 at half, 14-0 after 1. They dominated, did the Ravens, and again, largely in part due to that defensive performance. You go to week 16, and there were some other great gems in between there, i.e. a win against Seattle in which they dominated the Seahawks 37-3. Shane Waldron, who has been respected in this league for what he was doing in Seattle, just got a job with the Chicago Bears as their offensive coordinator. They were suffocated by that Ravens defense, only giving up 3 points. We watched that same Seattle Seahawks offense go to Dallas on a Thursday night and put up, 34, 37 points, whatever that number was. Granted, we've also watched the Green Bay Packers go to Dallas and put up, 48 points, but still, that's a respected Cowboys defense, and Shane Waldron was able to put up numbers with Seattle, could not do the same against Mike Macdonald's group. Week 16, one of the best matchups record-wise we've ever seen that late in the season. Both teams came into that game at 11-3. That was a marquee matchup and maybe even a preview of the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan and company and that third-rated 49ers offense welcomed in Mike Macdonald and his Ravens defense, and they got a rude awakening in that game, did Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, who lost that game 33-19. Niners held to 2 of 4 in the red zone, 1 of 3 on fourth downs. The Ravens surrendered just 19 points to a San Francisco 49ers offense that averages 28.6 points per game, second best in the NFL. 4 sacks of 49ers quarterbacks, 5 interceptions in that ball game, taking it away on the road against an 11-3 team, as I mentioned already. Holding the 49ers to just 19 points is no easy feat, and the Ravens not only did that, but did it in style with 5 takeaways in that game. Now, I will say, of all the defenses or offenses that have struggled with Mike Macdonald, Kyle Shanahan and his offense moved the football. They had issues with turnovers, especially down in the red zone, as you saw 2 of 4 in the red zone. Both of those misses in the red zone were turnovers against this Ravens defense. So keep that in mind should those two teams meet again. But week 17 at home versus the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins were trying to solidify themselves as an upper echelon team. The number 1 seed in the AFC was on the line in this game as both teams came into that game at 11. Or one team came in, the Ravens came in at 12-3. The Dolphins came in at 11-4. But should the Dolphins win the game, they would each be 12-4, and Dolphins would have the tiebreaker after the win. Unfortunately for the Dolphins, not only did they not win, but they weren't even close. And some would argue their spirits were broken in that game, 56-19. Dolphins held to 375 total yards of offense, which we know is nothing for this high-octane, high-flying offense. The Dolphins were 6 of 15 on third downs, 2 of 4 on fourth downs in the ball game. Tua was sacked 3 times. The Dolphins fumbled, and the Ravens recovered that fumble. 2 interceptions thrown by Tua, and only 19 points scored by this Dolphins team, who averaged 27.9 points per game, third best in the NFL this season. So clearly, the Miami Dolphins were not themselves, and again, most of that having to do with Mike Macdonald and this defense. And then the Texans got a second chance at Mike Macdonald in this Ravens defense and didn't fare any better in in the divisional round of the postseason. Bobby Slowick got a second shot and found success just as tough as he did in week 1. Texans were 4 of 12 on third downs in that playoff loss, 34-10. Only 10 first downs achieved by the Texans in the game. The Ravens surrendered just 213 total yards of offense. No red zone attempts for the Texans. They never set foot inside the Ravens' 20-yard line the entire ball game. Only 10 points given up by the Ravens in this game. None of those via touchdown defensively for the Ravens defense. They were able to keep them out of the end zone. Remember, the Texans' lone touchdown in that game was the result of a punt return for a touchdown. So this defense has been filthy all season long, and again, largely in part because of their defensive coordinator, Mike Macdonald. So now the question remains, and I think begs to be asked, does this guy deserve more consideration for some of these top jobs, including the one here in Washington? I've been adamant, I continue to be adamant, that we need an offensive-minded head coach. But as Adam Peters eloquently put it at his press conference, we're not looking for an offensive-minded head coach. We're not looking for a defensive-minded head coach. We're looking for the best head coach. And whether that guy comes with an offensive or defensive or even a special teams background does not matter. We're looking for the best coach and the best leader. Is Mike Macdonald? Can he be that guy? I don't know, but I'd be lying to you if I said I'm not more intrigued now, having watched this Ravens defense throughout the postseason, having watched them all regular season, watching this guy's temperament, understanding he's gone through that Ravens pipeline. John Harbaugh sent him down to the minors with his brother to be the coordinator defensively at Michigan for 1 year in 2022 before bringing him back up. He saw the success that they had, brought him back up, or I think it was 2021, he sent him down to be the defensive coordinator, brought him back up. He's been the defensive coordinator of this Ravens unit for the last 2 years, and they've been absolutely lights out. Once they got their hands, and really the entire shape of their defense changed drastically when they got their hands on Roquan Smith at the trade deadline last year. And so once he got Roquan Smith and coupled him with the safety from Notre Dame that they drafted in the first round, that was all he essentially needed to put the pieces of his defense in motion. They've been lights out ever since. They obviously one of the best defenses in football this year, best in scoring defense this year, best in sacks, led the league with 60, most turnovers forced in the league as well. So they check off just about every single box. They confuse their opponents consistently. They get free hitters going after the quarterback. They don't blitz a ton, but when they do, highly effective. They're well coached, and again, a lot of credit has to be given to Mike Macdonald. And so I ask you, should Mike Macdonald be more so a front runner for this job? Should he be considered more as a guy that should be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders? Is he being overlooked by many fans, including myself maybe out there. Leave it down in the comment section. And if he's not being overlooked, do you think there's a candidate that's being currently overlooked? Or should Washington continue on the path of going after the offensive-minded head coach, whether it's Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, etc., etc.? Leave it down in the comment section. Can't wait to hear your responses. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up, take command. Hopefully you'll be able to join us tonight, okay? Monday, January 22nd, tonight at 8 p. over on the NFC East Super Friends channel. We'll be live. We're calling this one the Couch Edition. The couch is all full. We're going to have some fun tonight. Hopefully you'll be able to join us there over on the NFC East Super Friends channel. Until then, you guys, have a good one. Take care. See you next time.